In my book, Enlightenment Now, I speak about the paradox of the journey and the destination. Basically, that the journey is the destination and the destination is the journey. So this is a fundamental paradox. Now, if you're interested in my book, Enlightenment Now, a link for it will be in the pinned comment and in the description. And if you're interested in my work and would like to meet me in person, I have 2 upcoming pilgrimages. The first to Nepal in November, and then the second one is to South India in January next year. Now, getting back to this idea of the journey and the destination, right? When we talk about spiritual practice, and in my book, Enlightenment Now, we're obviously talking about enlightenment, right? But the idea that enlightenment is right here and right now, because in the present moment, that is where the eternal reality resides. It's not something in time, right? Enlightenment's not something in time. And so in understanding that enlightenment is not something that's in time, what is the point of a journey, right? If the destination is right here and right now. Now, this is where the paradox happens, right? And so you'll get 2 schools of thought of spiritual practitioners, right? Where one school of thought will think that they have to go on a journey and continually postpone their enlightenment because the destination is off in the distant horizon, right? And so they might be a meditation practitioner and they're continually meditating until the day comes, which a lot of the time never does come because they don't recognize that enlightenment is right here and right now. Now, the opposite of this is just as bad, right? Where you have the people who believe that enlightenment is right here and right now, and so the destination is the journey, right? And so they abide as the Atman, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. They abide as the Atman, and they think that they are enlightened and there's nowhere that they need to be. Now, what happens in this state is that the recognition and the stability in the Atman is not strong at all, right? You could stand on their foot, you could say a bad word, a mean word to them, and they will completely be triggered, right? And so you see a lot of these people right online who say that they're spiritual and they get triggered by the smallest things online. And obviously, they are naturally politically oriented. They aren't adherents of Advaita Vedanta or spirituality in general. They're just political people. And so we'll leave that childish thing and we'll put that to the side, right? But the thing is that some of us do get in this bind where we think that we are the Atman and so there's nothing else to do until we get hungry, until someone kicks us up the butt, and so forth and so on, right? And so you've got these 2 dichotomies, right? Of one that's on this journey to continually postponing enlightenment because they feel like they need to suffer more to experience enlightenment. And then you've got the other ones who just feel like they're entitled to enlightenment with doing no work at all, right? Maybe this is a difference in psychology between individual people. But the paradox is, as I mentioned in my book, Enlightenment Now, that the journey is the destination and the destination is the journey. So they're both the same. This is the paradox, right? You cannot have one without the other. You have to have some type of spiritual practice or say spiritual aptitude for spiritual knowledge in tandem with a feeling of abiding in the Atman. So a continually pulling back of your mind from the externality of the world and into this eternal moment. You have to have both in tandem. Now, this is the Taoist law of Sha Sheng, right? Which is mutual arising, right? Mutual unified opposites that arise together, right? And so this is what mutual arising is. You don't have one or the other. So you have a linear world and you also have a non-linear world that exist at the same time. There's not one without the other. And this is where a lot of spiritual aspirants get it wrong. Oh, I'm on a linear process to enlightenment and that's all that exists because time is a reality. And then you've got the other ones who say it's a non-linear reality. All that exists is the present moment. Nothing else exists. It's like Gaudapada's view of ajati, right? Non-causation and non-evolution. But like I said, say a mean word to them, disrupt them a little bit, and you'll see how far their spiritual aptitude in Atman actually is, right? And it doesn't exist. And that's why you need to have both in tandem, right? Because they both arise together. They're Sha Sheng. The journey and the destination are the same. It's just a different perspective that different types of people have. But the evolved spiritual aspirant understands that they both arise together. And so you're not going off on this wayward journey into the future, continually postponing your enlightenment. And you're also not continually abiding in the Atman and rejecting the entire world around you. And so this reminds me of the story of Gautama the Buddha, right? When Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha, right? On his journey, he was on a 6-year journey where he was undergoing all sorts of pilgrimages and spiritual practices and walking all through the state of Bihar in northern India from his hometown of Lumbini in Nepal. And he's on this journey because he feels like he has to suffer for his enlightenment, right? That's where you see the starving Buddha, right? The iconography of the starving Buddha. And at that stage, he was a Shramana. And so a Shramana is someone who just walks straight. And Buddha himself was an extreme Shramana. So some of the other sages back in the day, they would say they're a Shramana, but they would kind of veer towards a town where Buddha apparently just walked straight and didn't veer off in any direction where people were who had food. And so then you find this iconography of the starving Buddha, right? And so Buddha, in this sense, felt that he needed to suffer for his enlightenment, right? He needed to suffer. So he was, the journey is the destination, right? So he was in that perspective. The journey is the destination. So he's on a roll, he's going, but it's not coming. And then he crosses the Niranjana River, right? In the famous town of Bodh Gaya. It wasn't famous back then, but it's become famous because of the Buddha now, right? And so before he crossed the Niranjana, he encountered the young girl Sujata, who gave him a milky rice soup, right? And he was completely starving. And so he accepted this soup, which gave him the energy and brought forward the middle way, right? No extreme over the other, right? And this is kind of what we're talking about, the middle way here. The journey is the destination and the destination is the journey. And so what happened after the Buddha had this milky rice soup? He crossed the Niranjana River, the famous Niranjana River, and sat under the Bodhi tree, right? And that's where he spent the night, and that's when he experienced nirvana, right? So he attained enlightenment in that moment because he stopped the journey. He ceased the journey. But the journey was significant for him to reach that stage. And so within the Buddha's story, you find this paradox of the journey and the destination, right? It's there for all of us. The Buddha experienced it so that we too can experience it in our very lives, right? We can experience that enlightenment is truly here and now, but we're also on a journey at the same time, right? This is the paradox of the jiva and the atman, right? The jiva has its life, but you are fundamentally atman. You are all that exists. You are the undifferentiated consciousness, but you also have a personal life that is moving through its own karma and unraveling its karma and expelling its karma as you live your life further and further. And then the more you live your life, the more that karma disappears and the more it's easier to abide in that Atman, right? And so that's where this paradox resides, in this understanding that the Buddha had of the middle way, right? So he understood that one extreme should not be followed over the other, and we shouldn't actually be following any type of extreme. We need to resolve it in the middle way. And so that's where the journey is the destination and the destination is the journey. But we only find that in our experience when we truly understand that we are the Atman fundamentally in this destination, but we also have our own personal jiva lives to live. And that jiva is on its own journey. But from both perspectives, The whole purpose of both of these perspectives resolved into one is that we have a recognition, a strong recognition and a stability in the truth that enlightenment can be nowhere else but right here and right now. Shanti, shanti, shanti.